Hello and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, and tonight I'm joined by Chris. We are doing our first review of London Film Festival. However, before we get into that, that's kind of what I'm going to do the intro on. I don't normally do the intros, but yes, London Film Festival starts next Wednesday, the 7th of October. However, the three of us have press passes this year, so we've had access to the player. So we're going to have a couple of films up before then, including the first one, which is, of course, what Chris is going to be covering today, which I have unfortunately somehow forgotten the name. Mogul Mowgli. Is it pronounced like that?
Mowgli, like the Jungle
Mowgli,
Book.
sorry.
Mogul Mowgli.
I'm keep scared I'm going to say something about the Jungle Book, but so the way this is going to work for people at home, I haven't seen this film today. I've not had a chance to. Chris saw it this morning, and there's going to be a couple of reviews over the next couple of weeks where not all of us are going to be able to see it. So you might get a situation where one of us has seen it and another one on to help with the review, or vice versa. You'll have both of you that have seen it. So there's going to be a lot more videos being able to be done this way, and we're looking forward to the festival. Of course, if you joined us last year, obviously it was in person. This year is online, so we're quite lucky in regards to what's being shown online. The only film at the minute we have a question mark over is Pixar's Soul, which is a shame because it's probably the one the three of us wanted to see the most. So we're holding out for an announcement with that. But there is a lot of big films at the festival. Ammonite's going to be out on the 17th. You've got the first two episodes/films from Steve McQueen's Small Axe, including Mangrove and Lover's Rock. There is One Night in Miami, which is going to be one of the big ones. Nomadland is going to be ballot, so we'll find out if the three of us are going to be seeing that very soon. So there's a lot of big films coming out this year which we're going to have covered for you, but yes, this is the first one, and as I haven't seen it, I know little bits here and there. I know that Riz Ahmed is the lead actor, as you can tell from the thumbnail for a start, and if you've seen any posters for this, but I'm going to hand this over to Chris to kind of go over the plot maybe and give us a bit of an intro.
So just first and foremost for me, this is all new to me, this whole London Film Festival thing. You and Tate got to go there last year. This is, granted it's online this time, as you mentioned, but there's so many films. Guys, we did a spreadsheet last night, me and George, planning it out, what we can watch. So many films. I woke up to 2 films today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Mogul Mowgli right now. I did see another one which we can't talk about just yet. It is still under the embargo. As soon as that lifts, we'll have a review on that later on down the line as well. But yes, Mogul Mowgli. So the plot of this thing, this is according to IMDb, a British-Pakistani rapper is on the cusp of his first world tour, but is struck down by an illness that threatens to derail his big break. I really didn't know anything about this film before going in, except that Riz Ahmed was in it and he'd helped co-written the film as well. So this is directed by a guy called Bassam Tariq, and I checked what he'd made beforehand, and he's only really done a documentary film 7 years ago now, back in 2013. But his films and sort of what he's sort of basing his career on, I'm reading this off Wikipedia here, works to aim to uncover the diversity of Muslim life and experience, and that's pretty much exactly what this movie is as well. It falls very much into that. So the core story of this is Riz Ahmed at the forefront, who, as I've just read, is a rapper, and his lyrics and everything, he's trying to get the message out there about these racial relations between people within the Muslim community and indeed other races as well. And there's this sort of, when his family gets introduced into it as well, when he heads back home, there's this very sort of old way of thinking and the new way of thinking, like the new generation, old generation in the Muslim household, and differing opinions and everything like that. So there's a lot of things at play in this film. But you know, the illness story is sort of like the central story, but it's really sort of the things that are happening around it, in terms of his own political stance in the Muslim community and his parents as well. There seems to be sort of this strained relationship between him and his father. Again, his father's very old school. And when he's struck down with, I think it's like a motor neuron or something like that. I don't really know what he's struck down with, but he basically can't use the muscles in his legs. He can't walk. His muscles basically just are slowly shutting down. And he needs, I forgot what they call it, an infusion or something, which is basically equivalent to chemotherapy. He's gonna be left infertile from the treatment. It's really going to knock him about. And his father, when it comes to the treatment, he's like, I don't believe in sort of this Western medicine. We're going to go sort of old traditional prayer and these tried and tested things that he claims, you know, with religion and everything like that. So there's a lot of things at play, and I liked that sort of familial side of it. I love the sort of like father and son story that it was telling. I don't really know how to review this film. I think that there is definitely an audience for this film. I don't know if I'm that audience because the things that it brings up, like, obviously, I'm not within the Muslim community. I don't know really of all these relations. I think it's an important film that it is sort of raising awareness about these issues, issues that I'm not myself aware of. So it brought that to the forefront for me that there are talking points here, there are debates to be had, and everything like that within that old and new generation. But as I'm kind of not privy to that, I'm not aware of that, I think that, people within the Muslim community will really latch onto this film. I think there's a lot in this film. It was well written, and Riz Ahmed as well, who I've seen from Four Lions. I think that was the first film that I ever saw him in. British comedy film, one of the best comedy films I've ever seen. It's fantastic. And then more popularly with Rogue One. He was sort of like a bit character in that, didn't really have much to do, but it's nice to see Riz Ahmed sort of getting into those dramatic chops with this one, and also helping write it as well really helped gravitate towards that character. And he himself, I think, is an activist as well. So I think it's probably a sort of match made in heaven between Bassam Tariq, the director, and Riz Ahmed getting this film made.
Do you think, because obviously this is one I did want to watch, I just couldn't see it today, with Riz Ahmed, his popularity, I guess, these smaller films, especially when it's sort of culturally driven, I think is maybe a fair term to use for it. Mm-hmm. To have someone that is an activist take on that role that may have been through something similar across his life. I mean, for those people that don't know much about Riz Ahmed, there's a story last year he was meant to be at Star Wars Celebration doing autographs, and it wasn't that he no-showed, it was announced like on the day, like, sorry, he's not here. And it came out online that he missed his flight because they racially profiled him at the airport, because they do that to Muslims that fly to America. So if you want to talk about like current politics, there's a lot of things like that. And he's always used his platform to try and educate people. And I think it's the same here, that when you don't get many films that are dramas, not certainly we do get them, but you don't get that. Here is a relatively big name that's going to sort of front a festival. It's going to have a big release. Now, to me, it's very early days to talk about Oscars, BAFTAs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But everything I've seen about this film online is centered around Riz Ahmed. It feels as if not only that he's written his own character that he can play, I think he does his own rapping as well in real life. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there's a sort of semi-autobiographical to a point that he can do rapping in real life. He's had that lifestyle and he'll have that culture to go with it. So I think with him leading this film, is it sort of quite clear in terms of what the film's aims are, with what they wanted to be? It's really hard to talk about when you haven't seen it. It's the first time I've ever done one.
No, absolutely.
Like a weird interview, isn't it? It's like I'm putting pressure on you.
I don't know much about his personal life, in all honesty, but I have to assume that, with especially that thing at the airport, like, I think you mentioned that it's been a while back since that happened, but I mean, that's shocking that is still happening. But I think probably elements of it are semi-autobiographical. I would have to assume that they are, and that's why he can write about it, and that's why he can connect with it so much. And we know that this is definitely a talking point that he wants to raise. A lot of his films are sort of based around that kind of community and everything like that. Although you have Four Lions, which is a very comedic film, it is nice to see that he can do this side of it. But I'd have to assume that this is sort of like a personal project for him as well, especially if he's getting his writing chops in it as well. I don't actually know if he's written anything else. I think he probably must have. I don't know if this is like a first for him in terms of his writing. Even in terms of the direction, though, with Bassam Tariq. So the film, I don't know if there's probably something you can read into this, but it is in more of a 4:3. It does have the black bands at the side, so you do sort of focus on everything that's in the frame. But there's almost like these sort of dreamlike, nightmarish sequences in the film, which are the things that I really gravitated towards, that were very uncomfortable and very strange. Riz Ahmed's character constantly sees this sort of, I don't even know what you call it. It's part of some kind of festival, which obviously I don't know the names for, and it has all like these kind of flowers over his face. And it's like this spectral figure that he keeps seeing throughout the film that almost mocks him throughout his illness and everything and what he wants to achieve. And I thought that was quite a nice signifier throughout the film, which you think he overcomes in the very end of the film. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a nice moment where the father and the son kind of reconcile over one of the songs that he's written. which has since been passed on to another rapper because he couldn't make his world tour, but it's still his song and it's still his lyrics. But then the film ends where he's sort of hung over the sink and you start to hear the chant that's tied to this spectral figure. So it's like he's not out of the neck of the woods yet. There's still probably a fight. There's still those elements at play, even after the film finishes. So it's quite a nice sort of bittersweet ending. And I think you can probably... I think the figure, it's difficult to talk about. As I said, I watched it very early this morning and I did watch 2 films, but I think this figure was tied to, it was like a personification of that divide. He talks about like West and East, even in sort of Muslim culture as well, with like India and Pakistan. And I think that signifier was there tied to that. So I think by hearing that audio again at the end tied to that character, it's like that this is going to continue. It's not out of the way. It's still an issue that needs to be talked about. So it was an interesting film. Obviously I've watched 2 films on an exhaustive list of films that are going to be coming out. So it's very early days to say whether I think this deserves Oscars, whether I think it will go up for Oscars. I did think Riz Ahmed's performance was very good in it, but I don't know if it's Oscar caliber because I haven't seen all the other performances. Yeah. We've got so many films over the next couple of weeks that we need to get through. But it was an interesting watch. I think that maybe it could have gone more into those. It was like it was perfectly serviceable, but I think that in terms of a direction standpoint, like the nightmare stuff, I thought it could have been maybe a bit more creative with the visuals and the visual storytelling of it and the cinematography. There's a lot of moments where it does feel like it's filmed sort of very flat, but then you do have these small scant few moments where it's doing something interesting. So maybe more of that, but maybe that would have gone against the sort of the message that they were trying to convey on the film.
What I'm going to add in quickly for people at home, sounds like we're wrapping this up. These reviews are going to be a lot shorter as well. I think is that kind of everything politely you've
I've pretty much said everything at the moment. Yeah.
So this film, guys, if you want to watch this own, we're not used to doing films that haven't officially been released in countries yet, which is great to a point, but obviously it's still new territory. So if you want to watch this at the festival, obviously the festival is online this year. This is going to get released on Saturday, the 10th of October. Now, if you're under the age of 25, you can sign up to special BFI accounts where they do a couple of films which are tailored towards the younger audience, which I think might bring home that message in regards to family and the culture within it. So if you guys at home want to watch that, then this will be released next Saturday, the 10th. And there are some in-person screenings at BFI South Bank in London next Saturday and across the week after. So we're going to probably round out the festival reviews of saying when you can watch it, where you can watch it, because it's very accessible this year. And obviously, we don't know anything in regards to international releases. This premiered at the Berlin Festival in February, so I don't know what's happening for people watching overseas. We can't give any dates and stuff, but that has been the review of Mogul Mowgli. And next up is going to be One Man and His Shoes, which is, I think, going to be this weekend, probably Sunday night. That is a documentary into sort of if you know what Air Jordans are, if you've seen Last Dance from the last few months, you know all about Michael Jordan's shoes, and this dives into the collector's side of it in regards to tragedies, murders, the sort of dark side of collecting shoes and everything, which you don't hear about because it's bad for the branding. I know. So there will be a review out for that this weekend, and then some more details, which I can't wait to share with you next week. But in regards to finding out what we're going to be doing next at the festival, best way, as usual, to find us is on our social medias, which is Facebook, Cinema Savvy, and Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. With there being so many films, we actually don't know a full, we know some days we're going to go live, but it might not be the usual 8 p.m. slot. As you can tell today, we started this at 4:30 UK time. We might do late night ones, we might do earlier ones, but the three of us will be covering these to the point where we're going to have most of them out, and we cannot wait to bring them out. So I think that is everything on this.
Yeah, I've said everything I can, and on to many more movies. There are some I know specifically on the list which I'm not going to be able to make, but I know that Tayte will be jumping on as well, and hopefully seeing a bunch of these as well. So yeah, looking forward to them getting into the swing of it, and it's nice to check out some of these lesser known films, I guess. And I guarantee like a bunch of these will be seen next year into Oscar season as well. So it's nice to get a little bit ahead of the game, I guess, and get some of them out of the way right now. But yeah, that'll do it from us, and we'll see you on the next review.